Thank you. All right, so welcome everyone to this, our second workshop of this workshop series, which is focused on firstly introducing ESCAP's national SDG tracker tool to the Pacific region, and that's already kicked off a little bit, but also helping countries to sort of take a bit of a stock take and review what they're doing with indicators at the national level in general. And we're also using this opportunity, given we're bringing all these countries together and talking about their national indicators, to have a look at potentially reviewing the Pacific regional indicators, which are being used to report on Pacific progress against the SDGs. So hopefully I don't need too much of an introduction, but for those who didn't attend the first workshop, my name is Chris Ryan, and I'm the statistician with the ESCAP Pacific office, and I'll be once again facilitating the workshop today over the next couple of hours. It's going to be a little bit similar. We're still going to keep it to the same sort of length, but I guess the main difference for this workshop is we're hoping to hear a little bit more from the countries, and that's going to be the main part of the workshop today, the second session, where we'll be hearing from country presentations. To kick things off, before we jump into the first session, I just want to give a quick recap of some of the key issues which were discussed during the Inception workshop, which was held on the 28th of July. People who are joining this chat might have missed it, or we could have situated people like me that have very short memories, so it doesn't hurt just to go over a couple of the key elements of that workshop. Then quickly run through the plans for the workshop 2, and then I'll hand over to Alison from SPC just to give a little bit of a quick update on the progress on the regional indicator development. So recap. I'm going to sort of go through this recap looking at it from two angles. Firstly, the approach we're taking, and then talk a little bit about the opportunity which we're hoping this workshop series can provide. So let's first look at the approach, and this slide is hopefully nothing new. It's one of the slides we presented at the Inception workshop. So this is basically the strategy overall. 4 main workshops to be conducted over about an 8-month period. We already had the Inception workshop, as I mentioned, last week of July. We're now at workshop 2 today, and we still have 2 more workshops planned for updates from countries on the progress and challenges that they're encountering. So the aim of these workshop series, it's very much on information sharing, not so much possibly in workshop 1, where we were more just providing a bit of a background as to what we're trying to do with the workshop series and get some feedback from countries, but more so today, we will be devoting the majority of the workshop to country presentations. And also, for workshops 3 and workshops 4, we currently scheduled them for November and February. Yes, can hear you.
Can you please put your presentation on the view mode? And also, it's not moving.
Okay, can I just check? It seems okay from my end. Can I just check if it's an issue for others?
Yes. It seems to be, yes, Chris.
It's stuck on slide 1 for us in the room.
It's okay.
I think you need to enable.
Are you so?
Do you want me to try for my end, Chris?
Let me. I'll stop. I'm glad you pointed that out. Otherwise, I was. Let me.
Highlighted yellow. Try enabling and then continue on.
Rosa, how about you put it up from your end?
Sure.
And I'll just. I'll do a very quick 1-minute recap of of what I was going through. So then at least if I see it from Rosa's side, at least I can see. All right, so it's looking okay for me. We're on the, I think, slide 2. Everyone can see slide 2?
Yes.
All right. All right. So, yeah, what we're going to do, just to kick things off, do a quick recap of the key issues we talked about in the Inception workshop, run through this second workshop, and provide a little bit of an update on the regional indicator development. Next slide. All right, let's go. All right, so we're currently at workshop 2 out of a 4 workshop series, and I was just talking a little bit about we want these workshops very much to be information sharing opportunities. So it wasn't so much in the Inception workshop because we're introducing this concept to you there and just getting a little bit of feedback. But from this workshop on, we're hoping very much for the countries to be talking about the work that they've got planned and some of the challenges and so forth, with a focus on the indicator sort of landscape and an application of the National SDG Tracker tool. So this is the second workshop, and we're having a good 3-month break to the third workshop and then another 3 months to fourth workshop, because in between we want to provide the opportunity for countries to actually make some progress with some of these things so they've got things to report back on. Next slide. So on the opportunity side, I mean, what we're trying to give, or what opportunities we're trying to give to countries is firstly the obvious one, the opportunity to pick up the National SDG Tracker. If it is or if it does look like a tool that can suit your needs, or at the very least, we'd like you to consider testing it out. And we've already started that process with a number of countries. And we will then support this with a range of activities, which we'll be discussing a little bit more in session 3. But the other opportunity is to help progress work on your indicator landscape. So we're talking about developing your indicator frameworks or accompanying metadata and so forth, which is already happening. So we're not coming across with anything new here. So we're not adding any new tasks, but we're hoping to provide an opportunity for when you do this work, do it in collaboration with other countries if you wish. So you don't feel as if you're doing this work by yourself. And when we get onto the third session today, we'll provide a number of opportunities or a number of examples of how we can sort of create those collaboration opportunities of working with other countries. I think next slide. So for this particular workshop, as the agenda spelled out, so we're going to firstly give a very quick summary of the situation in the SIDS. This is based a lot on the one-to-one discussions we had with countries, as well as the information we've received and tried to summarise from the presentations you've sent through over the last couple of days. Then the main part of today's session is going to then go into more detail and let the countries talk themselves about their own specific situation and some of the work they're doing to address some of the challenges they're facing with their national indicator landscapes. And most importantly, we want to then spend the last half hour or so talking about next steps. So we'll talk a little bit about support with the National SDG Tracker, but we want to propose a number of ideas on how we can support this work in general, creating opportunities for collaboration between countries as much as possible. And that's not just for bringing you together for workshop 3 and 4, but creating a lot of other collaborative ways in which we can work together in between the workshops. And we'll talk a lot about them in the last session. And we'd be really grateful in this last session to just get your views on some of those ideas and maybe some of your own suggestions. So I'll just stop there for a second and I'll hand over very briefly to my colleague Alison at SPC, who can just give a little bit of an update on what's been happening from the regional indicator perspective. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you, Chris. And apologies, I'm sharing a meeting space with my colleague who's delivering census training in the RMI, so you may hear the tones of Tonga in the background. But while these workshops are really about your national indicators, but we really wanted to take this chance to, in parallel, look at our regional set. We had a bit of a look at that last workshop. This workshop, because I have little progress to report, so I'm glad there's 3 months until the next workshop where we'll have a lot more detail and progress to discuss. So today I just wanted to show you the, the framework in the region. So that orange box is what we currently have set up. So in the Pacific, there is a steering committee on sustainable development, which is run out of Pacific Island Forum Secretariat and has the UN regional coordinator and the head of SPC as kind of the key players in that. So that's quite a high level body. But beneath that sits what we call a joint support team. And that's what Chris and I and Henry, who's also on this workshop session. And the key roles of that support team are, as many of you will have seen us in country or in regional workshops, coordinating some of the VNR support. And we also produce the biennial and quadrennial sustainable development reports, which go up to the Pacific leaders. And so integral to all of that, of course, is SDG data and indicators, which is why we want this opportunity after 4 years of using that set of 132 to investigate whether that can be improved. And by doing it in conjunction with the national work that you're all involved in, we thought there's obvious synergies. So the blue diagram at the bottom in the dotted outline is kind of the structure of how that will happen. So we've set up a data steering group, or notionally have set it up, and you can see the key players that will be in that: SPC, ESCAP, UNDP, PIFs and SPREP. And below that will sit a number of data working groups. Now, some of those already may exist. So we have a gender working group, a human resources development working group, Pacific food system working group, mental health and psychosocial support cell, labour mobility reference group, marine sector working group. And we'll be able to build on those existing groups to bring in their ideas about what indicators can be added to our regional framework. But yeah, ideally the national work also feeds in from the other side, so that we come up with a regional set that's also relevant and of interest to countries. So that's just the setting for how the regional work's going to be undertaken. And at workshop 3, we'll update you on what progress has been made. And of course, if any countries are really keen on being involved in this process as well, talk to us and we can keep you involved along the way rather than just reporting back. So thank you, Chris. I'll hand back to you.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Yeah, I'll just add a fraction more on this if I can. I mean, the main reason we'd like to link this work on developing the regional indicators to this workshop, which is, as Alison says, more focused on national indicators, is we're sort of doing the same thing. One on the national level and the other at the regional level. So with the national SDG tracker, what we're saying is, okay, we're trying to monitor progress against the SDGs, and we have so much global indicators for your country, but there's still a lot of gaps missing, and there's a lot of additional national indicators you could add to that progress reporting. So that's what that tool is doing. It's giving your countries the opportunity to identify additional national indicators that can help tell the story about the progress you're making against the SDGs. And that's exactly what we're looking to do here for the Pacific as a region. We have a regional set of indicators, but there's still a lot of, which is basically a subset of the SDGs, but there's still a lot of other non-SDG indicators highly relevant to the Pacific, which could be included in the monitoring of progress for the Pacific against the SDGs. So we're looking to establish developing that regional indicator framework. And ideally, we want them to, doesn't have to align perfectly, but align to some degree with the work you're doing at the national level. So we just want to share the progress of what's happening with the regional indicators with each of the countries as we go through this workshop series. And countries can share the progress of their national work with the team working on the regional indicators. So we just want to try and create as much alignment, which is considered appropriate for this exercise, as possible. Okay, just on that, I don't know if there was any more slides. I think it was just a question. So we can possibly jump into it unless anyone's got any issues about anything still not clear about the workshop series as a whole, or the plan for today's session. It will be straightforward. The second session, if you want to start getting your PowerPoint ready, Rosa. So this second session, it's basically just a little bit of a summary, and it's only going to be 5 minutes tops, based on some of the feedback we got from countries in the one-on-one chats, and also from the PowerPoints that you shared over the last couple of days. So we thought, before we jump into the country presentations, let's just give you a little bit of a snapshot of what things look like, so you can sort of look out for those things in the various country presentations. So hopefully, Rosa, are you? Yep. Okay. Yeah. All right. So Rosa's going to be doing this presentation. Rosa, and she was involved also with the Inception workshop. Rosa works in the ESCAP Pacific office with myself, and heavily involved with this indicator work that we're engaging in. So over to you. Thanks, Rosa.
Thanks, Chris, for the kind introduction. And may I please remind colleagues to please mute their microphones when they're not speaking. Perfect, thank you. So good morning and good afternoon. I trust that you are able to see the screen. This first session is intended to give an overview of the indicator landscapes in small island developing states. And as Chris mentioned, we received very comprehensive feedback from countries. So I will keep my session very short and also hold myself accountable to the 5-minute mark. All right, so let's dive in. Right. The indicator landscapes in SIDS are at varying stages of development, some complete, some ongoing, and some at the starting point. So all SIDS have national plans, but they are at different levels of developing indicator frameworks. And on this point, we will hear more about the progress made from countries such as Kiribati, RMI, and Nauru on finalizing the latest indicator framework for their most recent national plan. At the sector and ministry level, most SIDS established plans, albeit with varying degrees and levels of developing indicator frameworks. So for instance, countries like Samoa has 14 priority sectors, all with an established sector plan and each complete with an indicator framework. And as you may have guessed, this is not the case for all countries that may have plans at this level. And lastly, most, if not all SIDS are making an effort to incorporate the SDGs into their national and sector plans, though the process is not straightforward and has its unique challenges, which we will go into in more detail in the next slide. Right, so the challenges seem to have a landscape of their own, really, stemming from data to resource management. And based on the country's feedback that we've gotten so far, 6 key challenges were grouped into 3 main categories, with the main issue being establishing the indicator framework itself. So developing and aligning indicators was a salient issue across all SIDS, noting the challenges in identifying priority indicators as well as establishing baselines and targets. Another main area of challenge was in data production with respect to enhancing data collection and data flows. A number of countries also highlighted the need to improve the regularity and availability of data, as well as to enact efficient institutional structures to fulfill reporting needs. The last category concerns managing human and financial resources, noting the need to develop and retain statistical and analytical expertise, as well as to account for financial constraints. And we will hear more from countries on the detailed strategies they have in place for tackling these challenges, but I did want to give you a quick overview of some of the activities. Right, so as you can see here, one of the common activities that countries are looking to implement was around developing and refining indicator frameworks for monitoring the national plan, as well as their plans at the sectoral and ministerial levels. And other activities were centered on improving data collection, such as reviewing data availability and mapping data sources, including the census, surveys, and administrative data. We also had activities focused on data production, with an emphasis on improving data flows through consultation with line ministries and custodian UN agencies, as well as assessing the data production roles within those stakeholders. The last type of activities I wanted to touch upon is on improving the alignment within the indicator landscape, be it the planning and budgetary processes or encompassing the demand and supply of indicator production, such as surveys matching the indicator needs. And lastly, there was also a need to harmonize across different indicator frameworks, especially between the plans and the SDGs. All right, now that we have touched on the overall indicator landscape of SIDS, let me please pass it back to Chris to invite the countries now to present in session 2. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rosa. So that's just a brief sort of overview based on the one-to-one chats and the PowerPoints that we've been receiving from you, just to whet your appetite before we get into the fun stuff and hear directly from the countries. When we go through, I mean, the presentations, we're really strongly trying to encourage don't go past 5 minutes. I think a couple will anyway, but we'll sort of manage it as we go. We want to have a little bit of Q&A at the end of each if we can, but we'll need to monitor it. But what would be really useful, if you could just, as we go through each country, just have a listen to what other countries are doing, because one of the things we want to talk about in the last session is how you might, well, what sort of things we might be able to do to facilitate you partnering up with countries doing similar activities to yourself. So you know what you're working on at the moment. So we're trying to create this opportunity to hear what other countries are working on, because we will then, after this workshop or even in the last session, just hear a little bit more about you from, we're doing the same thing as those 2 countries, can we have a little workshop with them and share our experiences. They're the sort of things we want to do in between workshops, or this workshop and workshop 3, and then in between workshop 3 and 4. So please, listen up to what other countries are doing. You'll all get a little chance to shine now. And Rosa, I'm not going to run the risk of putting my power. I might get you to share it again. It's less dangerous. But I do believe Kiribati are up first to kick things off. So if Arista wants to start, relaxing her vocal cords, we'll have the PowerPoint up in a minute. All right, so I think that looks good to go. I'm just going to do a little introduction for each country just to hand over. But so I take it, Arista, you are with us, and the microphone is all yours.
Is it my turn?
Yep, we can hear you fine, thanks.
Okay. Do you want me to present, or what do you want me to do? To put up to share the screen, or are you going to do it from there? I don't know how to share the screen.
We're gonna share from our side, Arista. So all you need to do is just say next slide. So we can jump straight to the first slide if you like, but we'll do it from our end, and you just say next slide. So Rosa, if you can jump to the second slide. Okay, so over to you, Arista.
Okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Arista, and I'm the Republic Statistician from Kiribati. And hello, everybody. And I'll just turn on the camera for a while, then I'll turn it off. Okay. Yeah. Today I'd like to present the Kiribati Development Plan, the indicators in the Kiribati Development Plan. We have a Kiribati Development Plan with 6 thematic areas, which are mostly the pillars of the KDP. We call them the key priority areas. As you can see on the screen, there's one harnessing our human wealth. It's changed a little bit from the last KDP, but it's still exactly the same. However, it includes a bit more than what we have from the last KDP. So we have 9 indicators for that in KPA 1, harnessing our human wealth. Number 2, growing our economic wealth and leaving no one behind. That's 18 indicators. Number 3, in the KDB, we have health, and that's 12 indicators. Protecting our environment and strengthening resilience with 11 indicators. And then good governance, 8 indicators, and the 6th, which is developing our infrastructure. In total, we have 90 indicators in total. That's how we look at our Kiribati Development Plan. At the moment, we should be having our economic planners with us, but now is the Parliament session, so they are quite busy with the Parliament session. So yeah, I'll carry on with my colleagues. I have Agineta here, my Deputy Republic Statistician. Next page, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Yep, we can. You're already halfway through your time limit, so.
Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? I'll try to make it fast. Okay, what we do is we have the indicators in the MSP, that's the Ministry Strategic Plan, and that's where we draw the 6 thematic KPAs, the key priority areas. And from there, we sort of have national indicators aligned with that's where we align them with the SDGs and KB20, the big plan that we have for the the government 20-year plan. And then from there, we'll be drawing metadata. That's where we'll be developing the metadata for all the national indicators mostly, and adopting the SDG. Okay. You can read most of it, but who are the people involved in this is mostly the planning office, and then with a team of deputy secretaries and directors of ministries. That's a group of people that develop the KDB at this stage. And then we are also included. This is the first time NSO is included, and our major part is how to come up with a metadata, the indicator and the metadata. So what they do is they consult with ministries, the NEBO, that's the planners, and the NSO team, they have to consult each ministry's HODs. So we gather all the information that we need for the KDB. And then what we also do is normally we meet after hours, because all of these people, they have a full day schedule of work. So we have to catch up after hours. And then also we did some retreats so that we can compile all the documents. Then after the document is compiled, we present it to the DCC, that's the secretary's meeting, for their comments. Then we outsource to, the planning office, they have a new director, but she is overseas, so they outsource to the new director for review. And then that will be presented to the cabinet for endorsement. That's how what we do with the formulation of the finalization of indicators in the KDB and the KDP itself. Next page, please. Hello, can we go to the next page? Hello? Yeah. That's where we face a lot of challenges. Well, most of the challenges are, quite normal. Now we're going too fast. Yeah. Well, okay. You want me to talk on the last page? Well, that's the overview of the metadata. Okay. Well, I'll go back to the challenges. Well, we also face a lot of challenges, and that's up there. But what we really gain is more of like the ownership of the KDB itself, because this is the first one we're doing it locally, like no TAs. And then from there, we also have gained, some capacity building and uplifting our skills in doing this development of KDB. But the good thing is we built, better and quality relationship across sectors throughout the ministry of the entire government, which is really nice. Next page, please. Hello.
Yeah, just sometimes it just takes a little while to load up, Arista, but it gets there. So we're on if you can just start talking about the metadata.
Well, we are almost there.
Yes. Can you see the metadata slide, Arista? Hello, Arista, can you see your last slide on the metadata? Yep.
Sorry?
I was just asking if you can see the last slide on the metadata. Have you already covered everything that you wanted to cover on that slide?
Well, yeah. No, I cannot see the last slide from your end, although okay. I have it on my computer. But let me just have a look at it, and I'll just talk on whatever I have here. Okay. Yep, that's the overview of the metadata. Well, like what it's written there, it's mostly initiated by the NSO to ensure that, well, indicators are measurable and realistic. So we have to build a metadata from, documentation of all those headings, formula, disaggregation, and then data source. All of those. We also have, the finalization of indicator matrix for the indicator. That's yep. And then we also consult Chris, my friend Chris there, because some of this is all new work for us. So we still need to seek technical assistance. And then also another challenge that we realize is, specialists on, specific subjects such as like environment, governance, fisheries. Those are the ones that we really need some experts to help us with, so that we can, finalize the indicators that we are putting together for the metadata, for the KDB. And I think that's the last of my slide, because the next one is like, thank you all, which I really thank you all.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Arista. I mean, what I did when I was, for the people who are leading these discussions, I just asked if some countries might want to lead in a comment or question and response. We don't have to stick to that, but if the countries that I did pair up, if they did have something in mind, we want to have a couple of minutes at the end of each presentation. So just quickly, does anyone have a comment or question for Kiribati? And put your hand up.
Hi, Chris. A question from Samoa.
Yes, please.
Okay.
No, I thank you, Arista, for that presentation. We very much appreciate your efforts in doing that. I just wanted to find out from the indicators, the 90 indicators, are all those SPG indicators, or are they including some national indicators? That's the question.
Okay. Am I going to answer now, or is there time to answer, Chris?
No, I think you can answer. I think that's a good question to start off with.
Yeah. Like I said, most of it are national indicators, but there's also SDGs in the whole lot of that 90 indicators. So we haven't really counted the the SDG ones and the national ones in the plan, but yeah, we can let you guys know.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I see Tonga's got their hand up. Would you like to ask a quick question, Tonga Statistics Office?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi everyone. This is Lele from Statistics. To Arisa, thank you for that presentation. I'm curious about your metadata. You're talking about building national metadata. Have you had experience at least with one indicator to build metadata on? We're also interested in doing that ourselves for our national indicators.
I didn't get that question. Can you repeat that?
So
Chris, I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. So we're interested in metadata. Have you already had experience with one indicator on building metadata on it, or you're going not yet?
We have done a few, and we still need to finalize them and make it perfect. Like yeah, it's still an ongoing process. We're still finalizing that. The KTP will be published on itself, but the metadata will be a different link where all the metadata will be stored.
Okay. And NSO is in charge of that. Kiribati's NSO, eh?
NSO will be in charge of that metadata.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
But like I said, with the help of those specialists.
Yeah.
So Chris is our specialist. There was in your slide.
Now, before we jump over to Nauru, I just want to I think this is we've already got onto a great topic, and this is why I was very keen for Arista to talk about it, because this is not a commonly undertaken activity, producing metadata for national indicator frameworks. And it's fantastic to having a go at it. And it's fantastic to hear you say, Melly, that the Tonga stats will be looking at doing something similar. And this is a really difficult task, but it's a really important task to make these indicator frameworks relevant over time, because a lot of them, they die away if they don't have appropriate metadata supporting them. So this would be one thing that would be good to group 2 or 3 countries together to work on it, metadata, if for those who want to do it, and they can share their experiences, because this will be a new sort of challenge for a lot of you. But we can talk more on the at the end. We need to keep these country presentations going along, but keep your questions in mind, and we'll come back to them at the end. But I need to move on to Nauru. So Rosa, if you can, and I don't know, I think we've got Lindsay and Roscoe online, so I'm not sure who's going to present, but I'll hand over to you guys.
Okay. Do we need the camera on?
Up to you guys.
Okay.
So you can see Lindsay. Lindsay will do the presentation.
Okay. Our presentation will be on the Nauru Sustainable Development Strategy, also known as NSDS. Don't get mixed up with the Paris 21 NSDS. The NSDS, there's 4 thematic areas, 4 sectors in the thematic areas. We have the economic and the social and community sector, and the infrastructure sector, and the cross-cutting sector. Yeah. And there's you notice there's 24 goals under those 4 sectors. It's been already distributed, so it's a total of 24 goals, and there's 131 indicators altogether across the 24 goals. Compared to Kiribati's 90, we thought that Kiribati is much more than Nauru, but I just noticed there's 131 indicators for our NSDS. And PAD managed to pull out indicators that SDG indicators that may align to the national SDG. There's 38 altogether. There's 38 that was derived from the national indicators. And the responsible office or the division that for KPIs is the planning and aid division. That's PAD under the Ministry of Finance. And according to PAD, they're proposing to have an annual reporting at the end of every financial year of reporting towards the indicators, national indicators. And in my case, for the statistics NSO, we'll be having a census this year in October. I heard there's 4 or 5 Pacific Islands will be conducting census this year as well. That's what I heard from SPC, but we are one of them. And but most of the importance of designing that questionnaire is that is provided by SPC, and most of it addressed the indicators to the SDGs but we already incorporated that some questions that will address our national indicators as well. But we still have the review before October. Yeah. Can we go to the next slide? Just a few updates. Those are the list of 7 points that so far that currently updates currently going to happen. I think the NSDS, the KPIs, they'll be going through the approval through the government cabinet and for the review. And in our case, there'll be, like I said earlier, census is coming up, and it's important that the indicators that it should address the SDG indicators, and after that we'll try and after the census, because the census will be the prelim result will be out by around Jan or Feb next year, but the final report could be 6 months after that, after the October census this year. So that's the time frame. And from there, that's where we will get indicators from the census. And I'll try do align the indicators with the national. And what else? And we also have the SOEs. Those are the state-owned entities. Those are non-government. They're part of government, but they're corporations that are under government instrumentalities. They may also have their own plans, strategic plan, but that's another approach that the national to tackle the indicators for the national indicators. And yep.
No, that's fine, Lindsay. I mean, one thing you sort of nearly explicitly touched on, which is really important to this process, is when countries like yourself are developing these indicator frameworks, it's really important to identify what data source is going to be used to produce those indicators. So it's great to hear you're already looking ahead to the census, which is going to be a data source for a number of your indicators, and make sure you then design the questionnaire in a way in which it can then collect the necessary information to produce that indicator. So it's good that you're establishing that important link between the indicator framework and the data you're collecting in the surveys.
Yes, yes, exactly, Chris. Part of our, when we came up with the draft list, we had a look at a bunch of existing documents, such as existing processes, such as the census, to work out the initial draft list of indicators that we'll be using. So we've seen the census and the stuff they're collecting on water, for example. They recently introduced that into the so that's why we were able to easily just come up with some water indicators just by knowing that these guys have already included some water questions, water survey questions in the census process.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's good. I think we need to keep moving along, so I might see if we could just go to the next presentation. I think it's Marshall Islands, if I'm not mistaken. Seta, would be yourself presenting for RMI? Yeah, hello, do we have someone from Marshall Islands who'll be doing this presentation?
Yeah, this is Chris. I thought Aseta was going to do it.
Okay, you're welcome, Chris. No problems at all.
Is Aseta there? Is Fred there?
I can't. I haven't had a proper look, but I don't think they'll mind if you jump in, Chris.
Okay. Do you go ahead to the slide?
Yep. Can you go? Yeah. All right. Fire away. All yours, Chris.
Okay. So we are designing our M&E framework now that will complement our NSP that was just approved, 2020-2030. We have also worked on indicators when we were working on our VNR. The framework, the M&E framework, will be results-based, as you can see there. We focus on indicators and targets. We use targets to determine progress with regard to the NSP policy objectives. We focus on the different levels of evaluation, and we're linking our indicators to our operational budgets, which I'll explain in a few slides from now. So you see our timeline. Our NSP was endorsed in April 2020. And even though our M&E framework is still ongoing design, we use what we had to develop in our first VNR, which presented in July 2021, which if anyone wants to see it, it's online. We thought it was pretty good. So what we want to do is we want to align all planning, reporting, and budgeting so we can use one report. Our ministry operational budgets are in portfolio format. And what we want to do now is align our portfolio budgets, which are operational budgets, with our strategic plans for the various ministries, or sector plans, which are more strategic, more higher level, with the high level Apex NSP. And we'll be looking at our ministry outcomes, our ministry goals, and how these then align with strategic plans and with the NSP and the SDGs. You can see here we've started a mapping, a framework. We have two tiers of indicators and reporting. Tier 1 is more strategic or national level, and Tier 2 is the operational level. And you can see in green highlights where we go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. And I'm not going to read that to you, but basically what we're doing is aligning ministry level goals and ministry level budgets so that these activities then line up with strategic plan objectives, and these strategic plan objectives need to line up with NSP policy objectives. The policy objectives line up with the SDGs. You'll see that, I think, in the next slide. And, well, sorry, not quite. But this two-tiered alignment facilitates the costing of NSP and SDGs. Actually, it's not costing, it's the budgeting. We're actually doing a costing exercise now, which is going out 10 years. What we also have designed is a mapping matrix that will allow us to map all of the various activities and outputs at the ministry level across government with each of the NSP policy objectives, which will then link to the SDGs, which in theory would show us what we're spending annually to focus on our NSP policy objectives, and then in coordination with the SDGs. So that's where you have Tier 1 and Tier 2. And this is what it looks like. So you see we have a NSP policy objective in the first column with smart indicators, the links to the budget, which comes from the previous matrix, and then the targets that are for the NSP targets, the more strategic level targets, and then the operational indicators at the ministry level, and these are workplace indicators. So for example, if you have a immunization rate as a NSP target, a national target, then your operational in workplace indicators would be number of nurses or number of immunizations that are available. So these aren't strategic indicators, these are operational indicators, and gives us costing for our higher level indicators. And then you can see where we line up best we can with the SDG targets and indicators. So EPSO, Chief Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Banking and Postal Services, and I am the Reform Coordination Unit Team Leader. And what we're doing with all of this is not only looking at our planning, but tying all of this into our new public financial management reform roadmap and our new financial management information system so that we'll be able to put out these reports not only on progress of targets, but what we're spending to get there. And I think the last slide is what our issues are, or am I done? Yeah, so we've talked about this a bit, I think, already with some of our UN colleagues. Data collection is a huge problem here, including establishing baseline data. We've had this problem ongoing for over 10 years. Data assessment, how best to use the data at both a strategic level and an operational level. Who in the line ministries is responsible for reporting? We need focal points, and we need analysis of targets. We need to know, for example, if a target says we want to raise something by X percent, but if we're going to spend the same amount of money and we've never raised it by that percent, well then why would we do it that way? We need to analyze what we need to spend and how it relates to our targets. And you can see our capacity gaps there. I think a lot of us have these same problems: monitoring, reporting, and evaluation. I hope I made it in 5 minutes.
You did an outstanding job, Chris. I assume that is the last slide. I mean, I've got just one little comment, but I'd just like to invite any countries have a comment or question you'd like to present to Chris or to Marshall Islands team. I see one hand up. TS is Tonga Statistics Office. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Tonga Stats and National Planning Team together. But yes, a question, please.
Thank you for the presentation, RMI. Just questions on one of the slides about the numbers that you have identified. Number 1 to 8, if it's mean for the process or steps on how you.
Yeah, this was a slide that we presented at a workshop to try to explain to the line ministries the steps in how to do this. So yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, it's the green font is sort of an explanation. This was done at a workshop about a month and a half ago before our VNR, and we were just trying to explain the way the process would work, like what you would do first and second and third, the logical progression of how to do this. Now, it's a work in progress, but this is our first thinking of this.
Okay, thank you.
And I mean, if you're interested, we can provide, as long as it's all right with EPSO. I mean, that one slide, I don't want to say it's taken out of context, but it makes a lot more sense if you see it in the whole PowerPoint. So if Fred and Aseta and Chief Secretary say it's okay, we can share that PowerPoint presentation, which I helped design. So
yeah, that'd be great. But we'll wait to hear from the EPSO team if that's okay. Can I just quickly, I mean, FSM, we'll just take one more question. FSM, you've got your hand up. Can I hand the floor over to colleagues at FSM, please? Are you there, FSM?
Yes, yep. I'm here. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. That's a really, really impressive matrix. And yeah, thank you for that impressive presentation. But can you go to the next slide? No, there's another matrix that I saw.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that one. So I guess at the end of the day, in my head, that is what I want to have. So I'm glad that RMI already have one. Maybe I can plagiarize your table in the future. But you mentioned in the challenges, you mentioned data compilation. So my question is do you have any, how should I say? How are you thinking about approaching that part? Are you going?
Okay.
Are you going
well, first off, you're welcome to plagiarize anything I've done.
Complete my question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are you thinking about, do you have a like data technical group or committee together for that, or are you utilizing existing ones, or how are you thinking about that area?
Again, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We have just last week got off the phone with Patrick from UNDP, and I don't know if he's on this call or not. And we talked about this issue, and we are working to get some technical assistance to help us design a technical working group for data assessment, data collection, and to find our gaps and to find the best way to approach this. Because for years we have not been able to consistently collect data across government in the same standardized way, which does, even though we have this nice matrix, if we don't have the data to work with it, it makes it not so effective. So the answer we could probably give you in about 3 or 4 months when we figure out how we're going to do it best, because it's an ongoing problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so we'll need to move along. Thanks very much, Chris. That was a fantastic presentation, and thanks for the questions. I just want to make one little observation. It's just the use of the tiering system that they're adopting in RMI. It's a little bit different to the tiering system for indicators, which has been in the SDGs, which is more about methodology in place and data availability for the SDGs. Now, the way they're using it in RMI, and this is totally fine. I'd really encourage other countries to do this. It's more about the type of indicator they're adopting. So the tier one of these more outcome strategic type indicators, which is what Chris is referring to. And then the second tier is, I think you used the term, it's more like an operational sort of indicator. So there are different ways you can use the term tier in describing your indicators, and that's totally okay. And I think this is an excellent way to distinguish between the two types of indicators. Okay, so I think the next, if we keep moving along, if you just go to the cover. Next up is Grace from Tuvalu. If you're ready to go, the floor is yours. Can I just get an acknowledgement if Grace or someone from Tuvalu is with us at the moment? We can always come back to you. It's easy to go back and forwards on these slides. All right, we'll see if we can track down Grace in a sec. So if you just flip through a couple of, all right, sorry, go back. No, we'll go forward to Maldives.
Hello?
Yep, who's that? Was that Tuvalu, or are we on to Maldives?
Can you hear me?
I didn't hear you clearly then. Can you talk again, please?
Sorry. Hi, this is Trini from Tuvalu.
Okay.
Do we still have the...
Yep. We'll happily hear from Tuvalu now if you're ready to go.
Okay, yeah, so I'll be presenting on behalf of our team. And apologies on behalf of our leader, Grace. She has to attend another obligation. So be happy to present now.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm from the Monitoring Evaluation Department. I'm here with Sinaroy from the Planning and Budget Department. So we'll do our best in presenting this since it's the last minute information from for myself to present. So at the meantime, for Tuvalu in motivating us in tackling this particular activity, we would be glad to work together in developing of the indicator landscape, as mentioned by the presenters, and also in the main area of developing a regional indicator framework and the formulation and linking of our indicators. In the meantime, we have already formulated our M&E framework, which at the moment we are working with line ministries in fine-tuning of indicators for our national plan in order for our M&E department to conduct our monitoring and reporting. So as mentioned in the status, the process of tracking, it's only on a national level at the moment. And due to some challenges we faced on staff turnovers, we would like to have some form of information in regards to indicator landscaping, and others as stated in our first sentence. So by linking of the SDG with the national priorities, monitoring, evaluation, and coordination department, we are at the moment working together with the planning and budget department in doing the activity of initiating of trying to link this to do the linking. And it's a challenge at the moment also, since we have not incorporated all of the indicators from all line ministries. And at the meantime, we are also fine-tuning, also assisting, working together with ministries, line ministries in fine-tuning the indicators to link to the SDG as well as into our budget and national plans. So SDG, however, will be totally new to the tracking to the department, and we'll see how we can go about with the assistance we might receive from your end. If we can move forward to the next slide. Hello?
Yeah, you just sometimes, Trini, you just need to wait a fraction. It's just a little bit slow to upload sometimes.
Oh, sorry.
But you can still.
Yes. Sorry. Okay.
No, you can still continue with the next steps.
Sure. Thank you. Sorry, it's a bit net is a bit slow from our end. So moving on to the key steps to progress. At the moment, we are trying to clarify with the departments in regards to engaging themselves with the SDGs indicator to, as mentioned earlier, in fine-tuning in order to develop or formulate the indicators to align with our national plan as well as in the SDG. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what Grace incorporated into the presentation. And there's a plan of assigning a technical committee once all the indicators has been well formulated, in order for the committee will include the representatives from line ministries. Therefore, this will encourage their ownership of their indicators in order for them to report directly as finding, collecting of data progresses up. It is a challenge for us as well. So hopefully with the technical committee, we'll somehow overdo the challenge. And that's one of the key steps for us in progressing for future and near future. And Grace has listed some of the tools that we'll be mostly using for the activity. That is our national strategic plans, together with the ministry's corporate plans and the NSDS. and also, of course, the SDGs, Pacific SDGs, and the SDGs Technical Committee. So those are the tools that we have listed up there. And for the product to look like, I think that we stated 3, establishing of the SDGs roadmap, and hopefully with a reliable I think that's it from our side. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Trini. I think you were cutting out a little bit, but we got the gist. It looks like you've got a lot of work coming up in fine-tuning a national indicator framework, and the timing's probably very relevant with your voluntary national review coming up next year. I mean, just for the benefit of other countries, I think it's looking likely that Tuvalu might be the only country doing a VNR in 2022. So I think this work in fine-tuning your national indicator framework and what aspects of the SDGs you'd like to incorporate is going to be an important part of that VNR process. Is there a quick, we're starting to get well behind time, but if there is a very quick pressing question, we could entertain it, or we could just move straight on to the next. We might jump on to the next presentation quickly, but do keep your questions in mind if we've got time at the end. So hand over, I'm guessing it's going to be Shazna, you'll be presenting on behalf of Maldives. And if I could just, I know you've got quite a few slides, but if you could make every effort to stay within 5 minutes, that would be fantastic. Over to you, Shazna.
Thank you, Chris. Sure, I'll make it short. I can see the cover presentation slide.
Yep. Rosa, okay.
Yeah. Just to introduce, as other countries, we also taken the ownership to implement the SDG goals at national level, and we are working to establish a national framework for achieving these goals. And the Maldives Bureau of Statistics is working on the data side, and the SDG division under the Ministry of National Planning, Housing and Infrastructure is working on together with the all stakeholder agencies on mainstreaming the SDGs into the local and national development planning process. And what we miss actually is the missing component is currently the monitoring of SDGs based on the national priorities. So for the motivation for adopting the SDG tracker at national level was actually, so far we have seen that the SDG tracker is a tool that enables tracking the progress towards attainment of SDGs and other national development goals. So, and it's a very user-friendly tool which we have seen so far. So we believe that by adopting, we would cater to this missing component as well. Next slide, please. And the key activities which we have taken in so far are that the NBS together with all the agencies under the National Statistical System, we have identified the baseline data and details on the availability of data to all these SDG indicators, which are available through the National Statistical System and based on the different sources available, census service and administrative data systems. And every other yearly, the Maldives Bureau of Statistics is publishing a data update for all indicators. And MBS together with the SDG division under the Ministry of Planning, we worked on identifying the proposed priority indicators at sector level. Actually, this task was mainly taken into account the key activities which would fall under the national strategy of the Maldives which our previous 10-year plan has been expired, and we are in the process of compiling, and we will hopefully soon be coming up with our next 10-year plan. So in order to cater for the needs and the data gaps, we have identified the priority indicators. And here you can see the data updates based on the current availability through the National Statistical System. And on the other side it's the priority level we have identified. And we have identified high, medium, low as per the timeline, because currently the strategic action plan is focused by 2023. So we have identified it as a short-term period. Next slide, please. And also another key activity which we have done, it was initiated by the President's Office. A mapping exercise was done. It was mainly to examine the alignment of the strategic action plan and the SDGs in relation to the coverage and level of ambition. And here you can see the results of the mapping exercise done. It was done with the assistance of UNDP. And here on the other side, the summary which we have identified is for one of the sector, and for the strategic action plan, it has 5 key areas. You can see the blue economic sector we have identified here as an example, but we have the 5 areas are blue economy, care in state, dignified families, island life, and the good governance. Broad 5 key areas we have. Next slide, please. And who's involved? Actually, the SDG division under the Ministry of National Planning, Housing and Infrastructure is being identified nationally as the lead agency for coordinating the SDG implementation in the country. And the Maldives Bureau of Statistics will be leading the data catering through the National Statistical System. And a technical committee is being established at the Ministry of Planning, and consisting members from all stakeholder agencies at different levels. And for the data component, NBS coordinates through the National Statistical Coordinating Committee at the moment. And with the recent ratification of our Statistics Act, we will be newly forming different committees under the Act as well. So we believe the National Statistical Coordinating Committee will be broadly formed again. Next slide, please. And on the challenges, I have included all our challenges, and the details. So I would rather go with the key points. As the main point, we have included the unavailability of up-to-date data, and secondly, different definitions and survey methodologies used across the Maldives national statistical system. At the moment, we need to standardize, and lack of disaggregated data. Currently, most of the data are available at a national level. On a geographic concept, we do have many islands, and at the island level, very minimum are available. Only through the census is available. So we need more of the disaggregated data, and need for localizing targets and indicators to the Maldives context. And we need to improve coordination and data collection and analysis within the sectors. Actually, in the Maldives also, we do have a decentralized statistical system. So at the sector level, the capacity is lacking. So we need to improve those as well. Next slide, please. And for adopting this SDG tracker, we believe that the key activities we need to come up with is establish a stakeholder working group within the technical committee and the National Statistical Coordinating Committee, because at the moment the technical committee is very huge, like more than 70 members there. I mean, it's kind of difficult when we come have sessions with a huge group. So we need to have a focus group, we believe, for the adoption of this one. And we need to refine national indicators in the strategic action plan, as well as the national resilience and recovery plan and other sectoral plans as well. And we need to improve the metadata for national indicator framework. And we need to undertake series of thematic workshops within the sectors to finalize the national indicators, which we have proposed already. And we need to identify and address data gaps in the existing indicator framework. We do have identified during the baseline assessment as well some of the gaps, but we need to do the work for the current situation as well. And we need to align the activities to address data gaps to the upcoming national strategy for the development of statistics as well, and mainstream the prioritized SDGs into all the development planning processes, including the local development planning process. And we need to conduct regular systematic reviews of the national progress. This is something which we lack at the moment. Next slide, please. And we believe that the tool actually, the way it looks is fine for us to adapt at the national level. So we do have some expectations on this tracker. Actually, a functional and user-friendly it to be established at national level to present data across all available indicators through the all different national sources, censuses, surveys, and other administrative registers, and to provide the users with a platform that track national progress. Actually, currently we do not have a single based platform that could track the progress of these key indicators. So and also we would like it to be easily administered at national level. Some of the tools, when we adapt, we have difficulties in administering it at the national level. We have to rely on external sources. So we feel we have difficulties in that. And also we would like the tool to be sustained at the national level without depending on every time depending on external assistance. We had a bad experience on adapting not a bad experience actually, but we had difficulties in adapting the DAVIN4 tool. Every time if we want to have an adjustment to it, we have to depend on the external funding as well. So it was kind of difficult. And we expect that access to technical support we should get easily, and the tool should be able to integrate or extract information to other tools that are currently being used. Yeah, that's it from our side. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shazna. If you do have a question for Maldives, and there's possibly a few that could come out, can we just save them to the end? We do really need to get through the last presentations. We're already over time, so if we could just move straight on to Samoa. I believe it might be yourself, Joy, that will be presenting this time. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Our presentation today will focus on two key activities that are currently being undertaken to further develop our national indicator landscape. Next slide, please. Just to briefly provide an overview, Samoa currently has a very robust national planning framework in place that emphasizes the importance of aligning national priorities to sector and corporate level outcomes, as well as to relevant budgetary processes. In 2020, Samoa presented its second VNR report. For this report, we developed a national SDG indicator matrix that was the result of an extensive process and a very thorough exercise that was led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade and the Samoa Bureau of Statistics as part of the National SDG Task Force that focused on sector-wide consultations that brought together various stakeholders to collect and verify data for each individual SDG indicator. This SDG indicator matrix is now the main database and point of reference for analysis of national progress and is monitored and updated by SBS. Next slide, please. Our first activity is updating this national SDG indicator matrix, and it's an important activity because it's a key instrument to effectively measure and monitor Samoa's progress towards achieving the SDGs. Now, this is being done through surveys conducted by SBS to collect and compile indicators to update the indicator matrix. One of the key steps taken was the consultations held by SBS with all of the 14 sectors and their stakeholders, including government agencies, private sector, civil society, NGOs, as well as our development partners, to finalize the questionnaire for the upcoming census. This was done by reconfirming definitions, adding relevant data needs, and removing those that are no longer relevant or had been unused since the last census. SBS also continues to collect administrative data from various sectors and their respective partners. The challenges that we come across include the need to further align our sector indicators to the national level and SDG indicators. This will greatly improve our ability to monitor and report on progress. This is also linked to the second challenge, which is the limited capacity within sectors to develop good, smart indicators that not only reflect the work at the sector level, but also reflect their contribution to the national and global level. And then we have funding and human resource constraints, particularly within SBS, to conduct these surveys as they are often overloaded with demand. In continuing to carry out the steps for this activity and addressing the challenges identified, we hope to have an end product that will be a scaled down and refined indicator matrix with relevant data that has been collected from surveys to which they have been aligned. Next slide, please. Our second activity is focusing on the indicators in our matrix that have been classified as Tier 2 indicators. Our commitment to carrying out this activity is to ensure that we're able to collect data for the key indicators that have been identified as important to SAMO because they relate to priority issues. For example, the indicators under SDG 14 for oceans. For this activity, we are currently working closely with custodian UN agencies to build national capacity for data collection. For example, at the end of this month, we have planned technical workshops with FAO to build capacity in data collection specifically for the SDG 14 fisheries indicators. The main challenge, again, is in terms of the limited capacity, particularly the technical capacity required for data collection for these Tier 2 indicators and the overall capacity gap that exists in terms of data analysis and management, especially at the sector level, which was identified as a major challenge in our VNR report. We hope that with the partnerships we've created with these key UN agencies, we'll be able to address these challenges, build capacity, and ensure the update and consistency of our national indicator matrix, specifically through the refinement of proxy indicators to become actual indicators. And in the near future, we hope to have, as an end product, a one-stop shop of all the relevant national indicators. That, in a nutshell, is what SAMO is currently doing to further develop its national indicator landscape. Thank you.
Hello.
Are you still there?
Yep. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Sorry. We will jump. We'll jump on to the next one. I think we were going on to Micronesia. So, Brima, are you ready from your end?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bremer Johnson. Go to the next slide. Okay, so in the interest of time, this will be a very, very short talk. So the topic that we're choosing is National Indicators Reassessment. So for a bit of background information, since FSM had its SDG localization workshop, that was in 2019. there has been many changes happened since then. Strategies has been updated in the sectors, some sectors. There are new initiatives on the ground and recent state consultations happening towards those initiatives. And statistics is also involved in the data identification tasks of those new initiatives. So because of all this happening, there needs to be reassessment of the indicators. So that is the motivation behind us wanting to do that. So that activity is still a planned activity. So much of what you will hear is just ideas, and maybe some of them already being rolled out. Okay, so for the second, so the key steps that has been undertaken so far, like I mentioned, we're the statistics staff, including the SDG folks, has been getting involved in these consultations to basically to listen to the conversations that are going on, so that when we get together and do the assessment, we can kind of identify, okay, this is a story that is not there yet from the state perspective that we should consider including in the indicator set. So in terms of who's going to be involved, it's me, the SDG chair, to lead the process. And then each sector already have appointed persons that deal with their indicators and data management systems. So those are the people that we will be working with to do this reassessment exercise. Next, please. So the challenges that we encounter and envisage based on experience is there is a lot of, how should I say, timely populating and reporting of these indicators are very, I think, like the other countries mentioned, they're not timely or as we would want them. And what we would like to do during this assessment is, and especially those that came from administrative data sources. Yeah, so those are the challenges. And we're thinking of like, how should we tackle this? And some of the things that came out is like the reporting mechanisms that are in place at these different places. Some of them are not like aligned, or maybe not, doesn't have the standard thing that it should have. And then in addition to that, since 2019, we have new people coming on board. So there needs to be some training on methodology and all that stuff. What else? Yeah, go to that. Okay, so for item 5, I'm moving on. So at the end of the day, when we do this assessment, what are we looking at? What do we want to end up with? So at the end of the day, like the others, we wanted to have a comprehensive national indicators set. And that means we define all the national indicators that should be present in all the sector plans. Whatever is there, then we can map them, do the frameworks that they should be fulfill. And then what calculation goes into those? What are the data sources that produce those? What is the reporting period? All that kind of stuff. So that is what we're thinking. And at this time, just to mention, when I'm talking about here, when we come to that national indicator set that we wanted to put together, we're not talking about the SDG, because I think it's pretty much, in terms of metadata and methodology, it's pretty set. But when we will look at our national indicator set, I think what we can take away from this is we can actually come to a point that we can say, look, this indicator is present in different sectors. So, you know, that kind of thing. And then this one, we don't know how to do it, or in the indicator this, because one of our experiences, I think Kiribati mentioned this also, some plans you pick it up and at the end, it's not an indicator that you get, but it's like a statement, like improve the well-being of teenagers. So in those cases, we're already talking about, okay, so when it's not there, we can suggest to the group that we can actually use what SDG as. So that those are the kind of discussions that we look forward to having in this talk. Okay, and then linking, go back. So linking that to our, what FSM has now is we have a dashboard intended for that. It's SDG dashboard, but at the end of the day, we wanted it to be a national dashboard that it also include national indicators that we're thinking of what building from this exercise. So to link that to the SDG tracker, there is a lot of improvement we admit that we need to do to our dashboard. So we're very excited about this SDG tracker. I think we could use it, or it would be good to have a national workshop for us to test drive that SDG tracker. So for example, for me to pull in the data people and said, okay, you come in this workshop and see how this works, so that we can determine the direction of adoption or adapting whichever direction it goes, whether adopting this SDG tracker or adjusting our dashboard to make it better. And lastly, one thing that we have, this is strictly at the NSO office. I hear the other folks saying that it's very hard to pull the data together. I mean, you can think about all this, put it in a matrix, but then at the end of the day, it's like the data needs to be there to be able to do that tracking. So in the past, what we do is we just let the sectors track their own thing and then provide it to us. But we don't see much of that exchange from that end. So what FSM NSO is thinking is like, we'll just ask ourselves when the indicator list is set, the national one, then we just sit ourselves down and identify a focal point person or persons in the statistics office that say, okay, your job is to work with this sector or that sector, and then develop your what do you call, a schedule of when you come together and you yourself help them do that job so that it can be, the numbers can be in. So that is one thing we're thinking about. And I mentioned that because some questions has come to our desk, whether there should be a SDG data committee established. And I'm hearing people saying like, we don't want too many committees. So that is our thinking on a portion of that.
I might jump in.
So that's the end of my presentation, Chris.
Okay. No, I mean, thanks for that. I mean, you raised some really good points, and in the last presentation by Joy as well. I mean, the same things just keep coming up, and hopefully this will lead to an interesting discussion at the end on some of these ideas we have to bring some countries together for some national or even regional workshops to address some of these things on disaggregation and target setting, data flows, I mean, defining indicators, so forth. I think there's opportunities for some very interesting work. So we're going to quickly move on to the last, but certainly not the least presentation, Tonga. And once again, I'll make the request if you could please try and stay within 5 minutes. We don't finish too much past 4 o'clock Fiji time. over to the Tongan team. Thank you.
Malolele from Tonga, representing on behalf of the team. So we're presenting jointly with Statistics Department here at the National Planning Office. Briefly, we have 4 outlines to walk you through to better understand the local context of the work being done here on the ground on the Tonga National Monitoring System, also known as a tracker, and how best it can be interlinked with the ESCAP tracker, SDG tracker. So these are the 4 areas we will talk through: coordination, key steps undertaken, challenges, and way forward. On the coordination, what you see here are platforms of existing coordination in Tonga. One is the SDG mechanisms, where we have already the cabinet approval of the Tonga Strategic Development Task Force and the Tonga Strategic Technical Committee. These high-level committees are obligated with endorsing high-level reports on the SDG progress. Also in place and existing is the National Strategic for Development and of the Statistics 2019 10-year plan. Encompasses the National Statistics System. In addition, we have also the planning and budget process. We also have the mainstreaming of the SDG targets indicators to the corporate plans. There's a crucial collaboration between the MDAs and national planning, and also our data reality check activity in collaboration between national planning, statistics, and the 27 line ministries, which is also known as the ministries, departments, and agencies. Through these platforms, we also have established this budget briefing mission with the collaboration of the Office of the Legislative Assembly and Ministry of Finance in the preparation of budget deliberations for the House. In addition to the coordination platforms that we have in Tonga, we also have had the opportunity to undertake the Tonga Audit SDG Readiness Report. And within the many recommendations on the report, one highlight comes out is there's a recommendation to undertake the establishment of a SDG standing committee within the Office of the Legislative current committees. So that's an area that we would look forward to working closely with the legislative team in terms of establishing this committee. Following through is the key steps undertaken in this process. One of them is as part of Tonga's investment on the SDG. Tonga has identified and localized the 79 relevant targets indicators to the Tonga Strategic Development Framework 2. Here's a snapshot that you can see on the side. Is the SDG progress wheel previously used from our VNR in 2019, which reflects the progress of the targets and indicators here in Tonga. In addition, is the ongoing national planning, the ongoing National Planning Division and Statistics in collaboration in implementing the Tonga National Monitoring System, which is also known as the tracker. Within this tracker, it includes the existing mappings across all planning and budget documents, TSDF outcomes and outputs, also relating KPIs, and including the SDG targets indicators, and also is the sector plans and district plans. In addition to the existing tracker, it also builds into the annual budget strategy in facilitating the tracking of progress against the strategy for the next budget coming. Second, continuing to the key steps undertaken, in addition to the Statistics Office priorities, it's undertaking its internal actions to establishing the statistical coordination program within its structure, which complements our current activities on the data reality checks to be elaborated in the last point. Continuing on is the ongoing mainstreaming of the SDG targets indicators to the corporate plans. Here's a snapshot that you can see of the template of the corporate plan, and also including is the relevant SDG targets and indicators. And that's across all the line ministries' corporate plans. Following to this, the mainstreaming is the data reality check activities in which close collaboration is undertaken between the National Planning Office and Statistics Office. with these confirmations, again, elaborating the 27 line ministries. And within these data reality checks that has been identified, there are areas for improvement, which is such as the data gaps. And through the collaboration with statistics and the relevant line ministries to intervene and overcome these data gaps. Following through to my second last slide is the challenges. With the many challenges identified in the local context, here are the challenges we have come about. One is the enforcement. Statistics Office confirming the compliance is still a challenge, which may require capacity building on human resource and also relevant workshops on specific indicators. Where in example, 25 out of the 79 indicators we've identified that needs capacity building, such as 11.1.1. Following through is the frequency of data collections, survey instances, as we are aware. Some of these data collections are undertaken about 3 or 4 to 5 years time. In addition, is the working in silo leading into duplication of efforts, where line ministries are still undertaking this challenge, and also an area that in collaboration with the statistics and national planning is to overcome this working in silo through the data reality check. Prioritization of the Tonga national monitoring system is an area that we would like to see in terms of a way forward to look into prioritizing, as it has been not focused in the previous discussions on the NMS. And last but not least, on the higher challenges is the higher demand in new thematic areas. For example, is the disaggregated of ICT indicators within the SDGs. The forward-looking overall listed below, we believe that to fully develop the national monitoring system, this can synchronize the ESCAP SDG tracker that we are discussing to the national monitoring system to strengthen the existing coordination. That's through coordination on the national statistics systems, improving our regular progress on the SDG progress reports, and also continuation of the SDG indicators from 2030 onwards, as we all understand that there's a lot of investment undertaken on these SDG targets and indicators. Marlon.
Okay, Malo, Team Tonga, thank you. Once again, we getting close to 4, and I was hoping we could have half an hour for the last session, so we're going to jump straight into, I think, the last session. But just before, I'd like to thank all the countries for those presentations. I mean, you're all different stages, you're all doing different things, but there's so many similarities in what you're doing. And, as I talked a little bit about at the start, I mean, we really want to create this opportunity where countries can work more together on similar type tasks. And it's just so evident listening to all those presentations. There's so many aspects of your work where I think you really could benefit a lot from not doing it in isolation, but doing it with a country buddy or two for some of these things. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about now, these next steps. So I'll get Rosa to share the last presentation, and myself and Diane will be going through this. I'm going to be talking about just general sort of options for moving forward and what sort of ideas we have in general, and then Diane will talk a little bit more specifically about the support we can give to the National SDG Tracker. So if I just move on to the first slide. So just quickly, as I said, I just want to talk about the fact that, yes, we've got our workshops 3 and 4 planned in the concept note for this workshop series, but that's just going to be a come together like this, and how are we progressing? It's what's going to happen between these workshops where we can get some real benefits. So just touch on that. I mean, give some ideas on what we've got planned, and we want to certainly hear back from you on that, but then also talk specifically about the tracker. So moving along, as I said, so we're not locked into November and February for workshops 3 and 4. If we're not ready and we don't feel as if countries have made that much progress by November, or countries want to hold back till January before they give a bit of an update, we can do that. I mean, there's no deadline on this workshop series. So we could have workshop 3 in December or January and workshop 4 in March or April. So just want to let that be clear at the start. We're not locked into that. I mean, these 2 workshops are bringing all the countries together. It's all about just providing this sort of overarching update on how much progress we're making, so they can be delayed. Next slide. Thanks. All right. So what I want to talk about now is that these are just some ideas that we've done a little bit of brainstorming within our team with ESCAP and other partners. And these are just some ideas we're throwing up for some activities we can implement between workshops. And I just want to quickly go through them. So the first one is just one-on-one chats, between countries and partners. So we had these as a lead up to this workshop too. And the way we can see, I mean, we can help you finalise sort of what sort of work plans you might want to work on in the area of indicator development or adoption of the National SDG Tracker and determine the support needs. But more importantly, we can determine which other ideas you might be interested in engaging in. So some of the things we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides is these different sort of activities where we're looking to run, which brings more than one country together. And we want to identify which ones of those might be of interest to you, and we can hopefully determine that through some one-on-one chats. The next thing we've got there is like specialty workshops, and I've got regional there, but they could be done at a national level. And there's a couple there, and this came up quite a bit in the discussions from your country presentations. This issue about how do we set targets, or what do we need to worry about if we're developing metadata? I mean, rather than be stuck in your own country silo, how do we address this? We can bring a few countries together and we can do some little training workshops on addressing these things. How do you come up with an appropriate target? And we can even do this at the national level if there's a big enough audience. I know we've had discussions with some countries on the targets, and they've talked about, they sort of understand targets, but communicating that to the line ministries who are involved in setting targets is where things get tricky. So you might need to bring in a bigger audience in that. So national workshop could be something which takes you on to the third point there. I mean, I've got an example there like indicator development or aligning plans, but a nationally specific training workshop which we could help you facilitate could also cover things like target setting and developing metadata. Moving along. Another sort of idea which came up is peer learning workshops. This is where 2 or 3 countries might be working on a similar thing. And I think Rosa touched on the point earlier that it was Kiribati, Nauru and Marshall Islands who all got indicator frameworks in place which they're fine-tuning. So you're all at a different sort of, all at a similar stage in the process of finalising that indicator framework for your national plan. So would it be worthwhile bringing those 3 countries together, and we wouldn't necessarily be leading those discussions, but just facilitate it, and the countries can then just brainstorm with each other, how are you tackling A, B and C, in order to finalise the indicator framework. Ongoing technical support, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that can apply for if you wish to adopt the National SDG Tracker or for any sort of activity you're doing, and we'll bring in other partners for this as much as needed. So it could just be simple, listen, we're stuck on coming up with an indicator for addressing that policy objective. Can you give us some ideas? And so that's always going to be ongoing. Specialised support in thematic areas. This in particular could be where we could bring in partners that are experts in these areas. For instance, like a SPREP, if you're struggling with your environment indicators. So, and the environment indicators came up in a couple of discussions we had with countries. So you might have your indicator framework in good shape, but this particular area or two is causing you some problems. So you might want to suggest having a national workshop, or maybe partner up with another country and we could organise a training on coming up with indicators for those specific areas. Moving along. country mentoring. This is sort of addressing the issue of if a country is a lot more developed than another for a particular task, we could link the two countries together and have one support the next. I think this would make a lot of sense with the National SDG Tracker tool, because there will be 2 or 3 countries that might implement it to start with, but others might not pick it up till later. So partnering up countries that have already adopted it with a country wishing to pick it up in a few months' time would make sense. So that's another thing we're looking at. Online training, we touched on this very briefly at the Inception workshop. We have a very good online training course on developing national indicators, which we developed with our friends at the Statistical Institute of Asia and Pacific, ESCAP. I've got a link there. If you're interested in that, we'd be more than happy to hook you up with ESCAP and see when the next round of that training is. And this is not designed for NSOs, this is designed for National Statistical System colleagues. Anyone within your national stat system that might benefit from understanding indicators better, this is a very worthwhile training. And the last one, which maybe not a reality at the moment, but maybe down the track when our good friend COVID runs away, we would be looking at exploring secondments where, one of your country staff, whether it be from NSO or planning, might work with ESCAP in Bangkok or ESCAP in the Pacific, or maybe with SPC, meet with a partner and working on their own tasks at home, but maybe even helping with supporting some other countries. So those sort of things are also an option. And I think that's where I'll finish up. What's the next slide? Okay, so I'll just finish there. I just wanted to throw those ideas out there to get a bit of reaction. And before we jump into your feedback, I'll just now hand over to my colleague in Bangkok, Diane, to talk more specifically about the tracker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. Here's Diane. I'm a statistician here in ESCAP in Bangkok. So just a few words about the tracker. I think most of you have had already a chance to test it. You probably received already an account for you to experiment with the tracker. And here is a slide to show that proposed timeline of activities that normally go into producing the results of the progress assessment with the tracker. So the tracker is just a tool to help you measure the progress you're making on the SDGs. Normally, most countries will start with establishing the national team, and then they review the indicators, they set the target values, which is a big activity normally that involves many stakeholders in the country. And then finally, the data is implemented in the tracker, and then you can generate the results. You normally verify the results, and if everything goes well, you will be able to publish that in your website, on your VNR, or in your whatever publication you have on the SDGs. And that's the final objective here of the tracker. I just wanted to point out, many of you asked, actually the tracker exercise is something that you can do every year. So every year as you have more data, you can update, and then you can generate new results and publish them. So don't be shy, or don't limit yourself if you don't have yet all the data available on the SDGs. You can start with what you have, and then in subsequent years you can improve and build on that. Here are some support materials that you can use to guide you along with the exercise of the tracker. There's an introductory video which is very short, and it's aimed at just telling people what the tracker is and what it does. It can be useful if you're talking with colleagues or with senior management and you'd like to show them what the tracker is all about. You can show them this video, is the first one, introductory video. There's a how to use video that is more detailed on the different functions of the tracker, how to add indicators, how to add data. And finally, there's a video on the methodology of the progress assessment. This is the ESCAP methodology that is used behind the tracker to calculate the results. If you're interested in knowing how things work behind the scenes, then this video is for you. It's about 5 minutes. The next slide, please. We also have a user manual for the tracker in case you prefer to refer to in case you have questions about basically the functioning of the tracker. Again, how to add new series, how to remove series, and so on. Finally, here there are some areas of support that ESCAP can work together with you in terms of the tracker. As we've already started in one-on-one conversations, we can support you on testing the tracker. We can also have introduction workshops, more detail, and inception workshops in case you'd like to have a kickoff kind of workshop with many stakeholders in your country. That in that you'll present the tracker and the work plan that you have in place. And finally, we can also work together with you on finalizing, thematic indicators. Sometimes you may not have all the SDG indicators, but you may have other indicators that might be good and serve as proxies for measuring some SDG targets. And for that, we can work together with you in identifying them through these workshops. And finally, interpretation of results, which is very important as well. And we can support you in that to go over your results that you produce in the tracker and identify the areas that are more that you can highlight in the results. I think that's all from my side. Back to you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Diane. So we heard a lot from you guys in session 2, but hopefully you haven't run out of voice, because even though we're slightly over, we'd certainly like to hear a little bit more from you at the moment. We're recording this discussion, so everything we're going to take very careful notice of, that, whether it be in the chat or if you like to go on audio or put your hand up, would be happy to hear what you have to say. So there's 2 things we'd be interested in your feedback. I mean, we really want to make the most of how we can help you how can help us help you. So we want to just try and create these sort of opportunities for you between workshops where you can bring your countries together, ideally, if you're working on similar sort of things. And we've thrown a few ideas out. So it'd be really great for 2 things. If you just give us some of your initial thoughts on some of the ideas we've suggested, whether it be for the National SDG Tracker or whether it be for the work in general, we'd be very happy to hear them. Or if you got some of your own ideas on how we could take it forward. So this is just a open plenary discussion just to get some feedback from people. And I can see Mal's hand up. I'm hoping it's not from earlier. So Mal, would you like to start things off, please?
Yes, thank you, Chris, and thank you to ESCAP for the opportunity provided. Just, I'm interested in the discussions on national workshops or trainings. Tonga, we've been, for the past couple of years, I'd say like last 3 years, we've been holding national planning forum in Tonga, and it's been mainly discussing like SDG, but so it's every year in November, where we bring in all government ministries. Part of it is in preparation for the corporate planning and budgeting cycle. So we believe we have done quite a bit on, discussing the indicators and getting them to mainstream, as you have seen the Tonga's presentation. But one of the things we wanted to focus on this year is looking at the targets and how to cascade the targets down to the corporate plan level. And I think RMI touched on that. So Tonga will do the planners forum again this year. So I'm proposing putting it forth in this discussion. I will be very interested for if there can be collaboration between us and statistics and ESCAP in developing some sort of agenda where we can, especially we're bringing all the government line ministries into this forum, and we feel it would be a perfect opportunity to start looking and having on more details on the targets and how to break it down to the government ministries level. That's one. The other one is, as the presentation from Tonga highlighted, the need to be able to contextualize, and have they synchronize the national tracker that was developed from ESCAP and what's taking place, what's happening at the national level. And I think I brought this up in the last workshop, but I wanted to bring it up again, as what can be a possible way forward for as far as the technical assistance, because we really need to synchronize and use what's already taking place at the national level with what the regional organizations are doing. So I think those are two ideas that are being put forth from Tonga for further consideration. Thank you.
No, thanks very much, Mal. I mean, you raised two really good points, and we did talk about that second one when we had our one-to-one chat last week. I think the best thing to do there, I mean, we'll have another one-to-one chat if that's okay, and we'll bring some of our experts from Bangkok into that discussion. That I don't think they were there for the first one, but I mean, it's really important that we're not bringing you something else which is sort of competing with what you already have in place. We want them to complement each other. So that's an important discussion we need to have. On the first point, I mean, I didn't think it was going to get so much interest and publicity, this target setting thing, but it seems to be coming up all the time. And this is something we'll definitely be looking to address, not just with Tonga, but with a number of countries over the next few months, because it's all countries seem to be interested in this. And I was just thinking a little bit more as you were talking, Mal. I mean, maybe because there's a lot of training that needs to take place in this space. So maybe we could set something up, a bit of a train the trainers approach, where we could get together with some other partners and put on a training sort of thing for the key people in planning and statistics for a group of countries. And we could then help those people deliver further training, because you need to train the line ministries in this sort of stuff. So we could support and work with countries in delivering training at the national level. I think it's that important that we need to do something significant in this space. And we could even work in with CAP as well in this area. But yeah, that's really well noted and something we will look to get on top of. Are there any other questions, please? Comments? Anything in the list of things that I went through that thought, oh wow, that'd be a cool idea. Our country would be interested in that. Yeah, sorry, I see Samoa's lights come on. I'll hand over to Samoa, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thank you for all the presenters. We just had a discussion. We have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Samoa Stats, and the MNRB and the Ministry of Finance. We have decided as a way forward for us guys, we have to go back, take one step backward, as in we just have to concentrate on our SDG indicator matrix, because I think not everyone is well versed with all the indicators and where we're at and the progress and everything. And I think that will be sort of like, we would call it a scoping exercise, so that all of us guys here will be on the same playing field. And enough of that, maybe around October, then we will have to sit down and try and sort of like apply probably September. That was formal, Chris. Anyway, maybe in September, we'll try and apply the tracker using a few goals, a few indicators, and whether we can fully apply the SDG tracker to our matrix. And I think that will be an exercise for us. And maybe we might need technical assistance from either yourself or your colleagues, or maybe Armin from CF. I think that's or your colleague that just presented or whoever that will be able to assist us. I think that will be our first assistance, technical assistance requested from ESCAP will be how we apply the chapter to us using a few goals as an example sort of thing. I think that's our way forward as we stand right now. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for that, Ben. I mean, yeah, you're raising another good point. I mean, these trackers, it's a new tool, and we certainly understand the fact that countries might not necessarily be ready for adopting it straight away. If you are, great, we'll happily help countries implement it now. But if it makes more sense to focus on other activities first, and in your case, I mean, you've got your SDG indicator matrix, which is been developing for some time now, and it's in really good shape. But if it's more of a priority to get to continue working on this and have it in a state which you're happy with before moving on to the tracker, that totally makes sense. And I mean, this sort of thing applies also for the countries finalising their national indicator frameworks at the moment. It might make more sense to focus on those national indicator frameworks before looking at adopting the tracker. Because the information from those national indicator frameworks will then feed into the tracker. So there's no rush with adopting this tool, but by all means, we're still going to give access to it in the meantime, and you can by all means play around with it until you're ready. Are there any other questions or comments? Alison, I see you flashing.
Oh, yes, I just had a very important announcement, which it's come to our attention that one of our lovely guest speakers from today is having a significant birthday. So on behalf of everyone participating, can we wish a very happy birthday to Arista from Kiribati?
I think, can we have Arista come on? I think she's had all these nice flower arrangements in her hair earlier on in her presentation to celebrate her birthday. Are you on video, Arista, or are you hiding now? She might be out the back. So she did send me a message on the side saying she was going to run off to a party with her colleagues straight after this. She might have left early, but if you're still there, Arista, big happy birthday from everyone. And did you mention the year, Alison? It was a significant milestone, but maybe we're not allowed to say.
I'll keep that for when we're setting targets.
21, we'll say. All right, thanks for that, Alison. I had it flagged towards the end, but it's good to bring it up now before I forgot. Just quickly, it'd be any other, I mean, thank you so much for the feedback so far from Tonga Samoa. Hello, Samoa. You've been unmuted. If you could just, one of you could just talk.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to ask, remember we had the one-to-one consultation discussion last week, and one of your colleagues raised the issue that we came across. So for you guys sent us the tracker, and there was only one password and one username. And we sort of like decided whether you guys can send us multiple username and password, because we had the ministry of, I think there's 4 ministries involved, whether you guys can send us around about 4 username and ID sort of thing. Whether that can be done, whether it's possible. Thank you.
If you just.
Yep, no, we'll be on to that. Means Diane, who's just gave a thumbs up, he's working with our other colleague, Ricardo, on administering those access, so that there should be no problems with that. Any one last comment from any of the other countries? All right. I think we're just about there. Once again, sorry we've gone 20 minutes over. It wasn't the intention. I thought we might have even finished early today. But just to wrap things up, just thank all the countries again for their fantastic participation. Although it was extremely interesting, the country presentations. Learned a lot from it again, and we're going to use that information as well as the little chat we had at the end to put together a good plan for taking this work forward. I hope you found the session informative yourself and learn a little bit from the countries when they gave their presentations. We're going to be sharing all the PowerPoints again. We've got websites set up for this workshop series. So rather than attach PowerPoints, we'll just send you a link to that, and that will be come around tomorrow at the latest. If you have any further questions at all about what we're doing or just clarifying what your country's involvement or role may be in the process, feel free to reach out to us and we'll respond straight away. But just to finish up, we will be in contact with each of you again, maybe your team leaders in particular, rather than reaching out to your whole team, just to see if we could just identify, some of the areas in particular, and of all these things we've discussed, it might be just one or two things that would be quite beneficial for your country. So we want to try and identify what they are and see what things we can start putting in place sooner rather than later. So expect to hear from us again in the next week. And once again, thank you very much for your very active contribution today. Very much appreciate it. I say it on behalf of all our team in Bangkok and Fiji here, and other partners.